Welcome to FCA Canada Contractor Site Safety Orientation. Contractors are responsible for ensuring all workers employed by their company on an FCA project receive a site safety orientation. All contractors involved in plant construction activities shall attend a site safety orientation provided by the plant. Employees shall comply with all government legislation and site policies. The purpose of this training is to ensure external persons conducting work for Fiat Chrysler automobiles in Canada are aware of all applicable company and regulatory government health and safety requirements. A contractor is any person or firm conducting work for FCA Canada who is not an employee of FCA and not typically supervised by an FCA employee. Types of contractors include, but are not limited to, construction and demolition, maintenance, technicians, equipment supplier representatives, original equipment manufacturers, and janitorial. All contractors must receive relevant FCA and regulatory government required health and safety training prior to conducting work. Contractor firms are responsible for providing all applicable government regulatory required health and safety training to their employees prior to working at FCA. Training records shall be made available upon request. All contractors are responsible to ensure that all workers employed by their company on an FCA project receive a site safety orientation and acknowledge the requirements of SMI 163. FCA skilled trades workers and contractors and their subcontractors involved in plant construction activities shall attend a site safety orientation provided by the plant. Employees shall comply with all government legislation and site policies. In operating plants undergoing construction-related activities, employees will be made aware of the plant's fire and tornado warning all clear system. Contractor safety orientation. General or prime contractors are responsible for all of the following: ensuring contractors have all relevant licenses and permits in order to conduct assigned work, having a site safety manager on site during all work activities, health and safety of all their employees conducting work at FCA, including any subcontractors they hire, ensuring that each job has an associated risk assessment per FCA procedure SMI 166, Job Safety Risk Assessment, ensuring compliance with SMI 167, Personal Protective Equipment, as applicable to work activities, reporting all injuries, illnesses, or near misses that occur on FCA sites to FCA sponsor or safety facility lead, reporting all serious injuries, illness, or near misses and fatalities that occur on FCA sites per applicable government regulations, ensuring all injuries and illnesses are investigated, and sharing the results of the investigation with EH&S facility lead. FCA may request specific information to be included in the investigation and/or a specific format. Contractors and/or visitors may be banned from FCA facilities for unsafe behaviors and actions that violate established safety requirements as defined in this procedure or by each FCA site. It is imperative that all subcontractors, including subtrades of a subcontractor, be appropriately notified by the primary contractor of the requirements of this FCA worksite, which include all applicable requirements set forth in this document. No subtrades will be allowed to conduct work unless compliance in these areas is achieved. Additionally, any contractors doing work on this site shall be knowledgeable of applicable requirements set forth in the Act, as well as FCA's lockout procedure, and confined space entry procedure. The designated FCA contact shall, upon request, be provided with either a copy of each site person's trade license or access to a site where copies of these certificates are kept on file. Upon entering the job site to begin work, the contractor will issue an identification badge for each employee. This badge shall be visible and shall be worn at all times. Each contractor shall be responsible to ensure that all employees have badges. Contractor's logo and employee's name on a hard hat is an acceptable badge of identification. The contractor shall ensure that employees are wearing the correct and current contractor logo. Access to the facility will be granted through the following two methods. First, for frequent access contractors, you may apply for the FCA Turnstile Swipe Badge. Second, less frequent visitors will be issued the Special Workman's Pass, generally valid for 30-day intervals unless stated otherwise. You will also need to apply for the Special Workman Vehicle Pass if you are driving into the facility. To obtain your badge or Special Workman's Pass, please speak with your plant facilitator. From a safety rule standpoint, there is no smoking in the plant. You must use the designated smoking areas located around the perimeter. You are required to utilize designated walkways, and the use of cell phones while walking or performing work is prohibited. In the event of an emergency, use any in-plant phone and contact security. Each phone is equipped with emergency number stickers, including the security number. When calling, please provide your location by column number, identify your emergency, company name, and number. Before we enter the shop floor, you must have the designated safety PPE for the plant based on the risk you are exposed to, including green patch safety shoes. In addition, we ask that you wear the safety vest. Safety tones. If you hear one of the plant sirens sound, simply look up for the closest placard hanging in your area. Each placard will contain the location of the nearest tornado shelter in the event of severe weather, and the meeting point or muster point outside of the building in the event of a building evacuation. For an evacuation, you will hear a long siren. For take cover severe weather, you will hear a steady wail, and for all clear, the sounding of plant chimes. In the event of a building evacuation, do not attempt to leave the property. Report to the nearest gathering point and check in with the area supervisor or security personnel. Environmental health and safety. All FCA locations are dedicated to operating in an environmentally safe manner. We conform to environmental health and safety and energy requirements and obligation. Achieve environmental health and safety and energy performance objectives and targets. Purchase and design for energy efficiency. Practice sustainability, or CAP2 for short. Please ensure you operate in a safe manner while on site. Workplace violence and harassment. FCA has zero tolerance for acts of workplace violence and harassment. This program exists to underline the seriousness of any issue and to establish that there is no acceptable level of violence or harassment in the workplace. Employees who have reason to believe that they may be endangered by workplace violence and harassment or are being threatened or harassed are encouraged to report all incidents to human resource personnel, the safety department, or plant security immediately. Pre-project meeting. The contractor shall meet with relevant FCA sponsors such as plant engineering and the plant safety department prior to the starting of any work in order to discuss any specific safety precautions to be taken by the contractor relating to the particular FCA facility, its processes, and operation. The designated FCA contact shall be consulted before working next to or above production areas. Upon authorization from the FCA plant representatives, contractors required to work overhead while production is in progress shall provide a floor spotter whenever overhead work is being performed from an elevating platform. In all cases, the contractor shall yield to pedestrians and production processes. Notice of project. The constructor must provide a notice of project to the Ministry of Labor prior to starting projects that meet the standards set out in Section 6, Subsection 1 of the Regulation for Construction Projects under Regulation 213/91. You must have a signed copy of the notice of project posted at the project or available at the project for review. Identification of construction zones. All construction zones shall be identified as such. A barrier of either hoarding, snow fencing, sawhorses, or other appropriate means shall be used. Signage shall be utilized to adequately identify that these zones are construction sites. Required communication. Contact the project manager and plant engineering or designated representative sponsor for the following. Number 1, attempting to install, bypass, jump out any device by any means, including computer software capabilities. 2, before connecting any equipment or tools to compressed air lines. 3, before connecting any equipment or tools to electrical lines. 4, before using any equipment or facilities of the company. 5, before installing any temporary wire. 6, before working above or immediately next to production areas. 7, before working in the vicinity of overhead power lines. 8, before cutting, drilling, or welding on structural steel. 9, before loading material or equipment above the main floor or on the roof. 10, before purging lines. And 11, before initiating a lockout on any equipment. Required communication continued. Contact FCA plant security/fire personnel or designated personnel before any of the following. Before any burning, welding, cutting, grinding, or soldering begins. When using any plant firefighting equipment. And before entering any confined space. You must contact FCA Plant Safety Department before attempting to install, bypass, jump out any device by any means, including computer software capabilities. Before using a chainsaw. Before using suspended or swinging type scaffolds. Before bringing any tool that derives power from an exploding cartridge. Before using heavy lifting devices. Example, cranes, above ground lifting devices, or helicopters. Before bringing in any high pressure equipment onto the job site. Before using any explosives. Before bringing in X-ray or laser cutting equipment. Before bringing in any type of chemicals on FCA property, the contractor shall obtain approval to use the chemical and shall provide the material safety data sheet for the product. Only FCA approved products are permitted, and before conducting any non-destructive testing. Required communication documentation. A general safety board shall be displayed on site to communicate the latest safety procedures, policies, minutes, and news concerning this project. A copy of Regulation 213 must also be posted on this board. A current up-to-date layout should also be posted to clearly indicate where construction zones are located. A list of all contractor and subcontractor names, addresses, contact person, and phone numbers shall be provided to the designated FCA contact working at this site. This list shall be periodically updated. Copies of all contractor and subcontractors' health and safety policies and programs to be implemented shall be in an on-site file. Job Safety Risk Assessment. An FCA Job Safety Risk Assessment, or JSRA for short, must be completed prior to the start of any work on a daily basis. Please refer to your plant's EH&S office for the retrieval of necessary forms. The JSRA sheet must be filled out completely. It is imperative that you fill out in the column location, station name and/or number, and provide a brief description of the work to be performed under the Task Analyze tab located on the top of the form. The back of the JSRA must be signed by all workers prior to the start of any work for each job, each shift. The supervisor or site foreman must sign and date the sheet once all workers have been presented the JSRA and signed off. Failure to comply with this procedure may result in removal from FCA property and potential fines from the Ministry of Labor. Reporting an incident. All incidents and/or near misses shall be reported immediately to plant safety. An investigation shall be conducted immediately and a written report submitted to your plant contact within 24 hours. If a critical injury occurs, the contractor is responsible for contacting the Ministry of Labor as outlined in the Act. All spills shall be reported immediately to the contact supervisor, and the FCA environmental specialist shall be notified. Employee conduct. No contract employee shall engage in any type of running, horseplay, pranks, feats of strength, boisterous conduct, acts of threatening intimidation, including derogatory remarks to another worker while on FCA property. All contractor employees are expected to treat others with courtesy and consideration and to discourage harassment. No worker shall possess, use, sell, or be under the influence of alcohol or illicit drugs while on company or adjoining properties. Substance abuse is strictly prohibited on company premises at all times. There is no smoking allowed in any FCA facility. Any contractor employee who is found engaging in the above activities is subject to disciplinary action up to and including dismissal from FCA property. Shock and arc flash safety. In accordance with FCA policy for electrical safety in the workplace, contractors of FCA who may be required to work on any live electrical circuits operating at 50 volts or more are expected to first utilize lockout energy control prior to beginning work on any electrical system. When electrical shutdown is not feasible and testing/troubleshooting is required on live circuits, the contractor shall coordinate and communicate the need for live work. Provide insulated tools, personal protective equipment, including insulated gloves and properly rated testing equipment for all their employees to use when working on live electrical circuits greater than 50 volts. Provide insulated tools, personal protective equipment, including insulated gloves, head and foot protection, and, at a minimum, arc flash PPE Category 2 clothing, and properly rated testing equipment for their employees to use when working on live electrical circuits 50 volts or greater. Equipment. It is the contractor's responsibility to provide, maintain, and ensure that all necessary equipment, including personal protective equipment, is properly utilized and worn according to the manufacturer's recommendations. All equipment used by contractors shall conform to Canadian Standards Association or Underwriter Laboratories specifications, and all guarding installed by the manufacturer shall remain intact. FCA reserves the right to forbid the use of any equipment, methods, or practices to which the contractor may use. Fire regulations. All emergency exit, aisleways, and fire equipment, hoses, extinguishers, cables, and valves shall be kept free of obstacles, equipment, and debris. All fires shall be reported immediately to plant security/fire personnel. The contractors shall provide adequate fire extinguishers in good working order and properly filled. Welding and cutting. The contractor shall contact plant security or designated personnel to obtain a hot work permit before starting any flame cutting, welding, or grinding operations. The issued hot work permit is only valid for the date, time, and location specified. Flammable liquids shall not be brought into the plant without prior approval of FCA plant security or designated personnel. Compressed gas cylinders. All flammable materials, including propane, oxygen, and acetylene, shall be stored at least 50 feet away from the FCA building. All oxygen acetylene torch setups shall be equipped with flashback arresters and used as prescribed by the manufacturer. All compressed gas cylinders shall be stored in well-ventilated areas, which is located away from traffic and free-falling materials. In all cases, all compressed gas cylinders shall be fastened securely in an upright position, the valves closed, and safety caps in place when not in use. Propane cylinders. All propane cylinders must be changed outside of the building and away from sources of ignition to avoid risk of explosion, while using the appropriate PPE, neoprene gloves. Percussion tools. The designated FCA contact shall be contacted by the contractor's site supervisor prior to bringing any type of percussion tool powered by an exploding cartridge. These devices, if approved, are thereafter subject to the following restrictions. The use of these tools is strictly limited to the person in possession of a current certificate of competence as issued by the equipment manufacturer. Operators of these tools shall account daily for all charges, fired and misfired. All cartridges fired or misfired shall be removed from the property daily. Spent cartridges shall not be thrown onto the floor. Operators of the tools are held personally responsible for their safe use. Excavations. All precautions shall be taken to avoid fouling or striking underground cables or other installations. Prior to beginning the excavation, all building underground services shall be reviewed by the contractor and the FCA facility engineer as appointed. Access egress for excavation trenches and pits. A ladder shall be provided and used for access egress from the excavation trench or pit. The ladder shall be extended 3 feet above the landing surface and be secured to prevent slippage. Sloping and shoring excavations. All excavations shall be shored appropriately. Proper sloping of excavations shall be maintained at all times. Trench boxes. A professional engineer shall design a trench box and other prefabricated support systems. Design drawings and specifications for support systems shall be made available upon request. Barricading excavations. Barricades shall be installed around all excavations prior to the commencement of the work. Proper barricading shall be maintained for the duration of the excavation. Barricades shall be either snow fence or sawhorses. Caution tape shall not be used as the only means of barricading. An excavation of 10 feet or more in depth shall be provided with a guardrail system around the perimeter and constructed in accordance with regulatory requirements. Proper warning signs shall be posted proportionately to the excavation and maintained at all times. Barricades shall be set back at a minimum of 2 feet from the edge of the excavation. Guarding roof and other openings. Any contractor required to create a roof or floor opening at any FCA facility shall implement the following requirements prior to creating an opening in a roof or floor. The following shall be implemented where workers may fall more than 4 feet into or onto a hazardous substance. Develop a written fall protection plan to guard against any possibility of a worker falling, including a detailed rescue plan. If used, guardrails shall have a mid-rail, top rail, and toe board capable of sustaining the intended load to be imposed on the guardrail system. The guardrail shall be installed prior to creating the opening. Guarding roof and other openings. If using a protective covering, it shall completely cover the opening and be able to sustain the load that will be placed on it. The covering shall be securely fastened and identified as opening, do not remove. Legible warning signs shall be posted proportionally around the opening. Assign spotters as required if hoisting through the roof, floor, screen guard opening. The contractor shall ensure that at no time is any part of the roof, floor, screen guard opening left unguarded. Workers shall wear fall arrest systems when within the guardrail system where a hazard of 4 feet is possible. Helicopter lifts. Prior to any helicopter lift, a written action plan and flight plan shall be made available to the designated FCA contact. The contractor must conduct a site meeting prior to the lift to review all procedures and methods. The contractor shall provide all personal protective equipment and any special apparatuses unique to the lift. Housekeeping. All contractor employees are responsible to ensure a good standard of housekeeping is maintained at all times. Scrap and debris shall be removed from the work area as often as necessary or upon request by the FCA Safety Department. Oily and waste solvent rags are a fire and environmental hazard and shall be deposited in metal containers with self-closing lids and placed at the appropriate waste location designated by the plant environmental specialist. Housekeeping shall meet applicable requirements of the Occupational Health and Safety Act regulations. Housekeeping. At the end of each shift, you are expected to ensure the work area is left clean and free from hazards. If you are performing overhead work, please ensure all tools and loose objects are secured in your job box before leaving the job site. Ladder safety. Use the correct ladder type for the job and properly set the ladder at a 1:4 base to height ratio. Visually inspect the ladder for any damage prior to use. Always use proper climbing procedures and maintain 3-point contact. Only fiberglass ladders are allowed on site. Aluminum or painted wooden ladders are not allowed on FCA property. Heavy equipment. Contractors shall ensure that each piece of equipment they bring on site is mechanically fit and in good working order prior to its use on the project. The equipment shall be maintained and access to the preventative maintenance records shall be made available to FCA upon request. Logbooks and operator manuals. All logbooks and operator manuals shall be maintained by contractors for all incoming mechanical and electrical machinery or equipment to be used on the project. The logbook shall identify previous inspections performed and contain details of the inspection, frequency, maintenance, and repairs. All logbooks shall be maintained as prescribed by government legislation and be available for review by FCA upon request. The equipment manufacturer, supplier, or equivalent shall provide all operator manuals. The manual shall be maintained on the project and be made readily available upon request to the operator and FCA. Pre-inspections. A pre-inspection tag or sticker shall be affixed to the equipment prior to its use on the project for the first time. The mechanic's name and date of the inspection shall be present on the pre-inspection tag or sticker. Inspections of all equipment shall be carried out in accordance to the manufacturer recommendations. Inspections are required for each use when a change of operator and shifts as per PIV daily checklist. Proof of training to operator. All contractors possessing heavy/mobile equipment shall maintain on-site documentation of training by means of certificate, a license, or a letter attesting to the employer establishing that the persons listed for the operation of the specific equipment are qualified or trained in its safe operation. Copies of such documentation shall be made available to the designated FCA contact upon request and shall be maintained on site. Powered Industrial Vehicles, or PIV for short. Lift trucks shall be in good condition and equipped with an overhead guard and all necessary safety devices. The forklift shall be large enough for the work involved. Any persons who operate a lift truck shall be trained and licensed by the contractor. When traveling without a load, the forks of the lift truck shall be tilted back and raised at least 4 inches off the floor to avoid any obstructions. When not in use, the forks of the lift truck shall be lowered to the floor. Powered equipment shall not be left unattended unless the forks, buckets, blades, and similar parts are in the lowered position or solidly supported. The maximum speed limit in the plant shall not exceed 8 kilometers per hour or 5 miles per hour. The maximum speed limit outside on FCA property is 25 kilometers per hour or 12 miles per hour. You must have a current PIV license to operate a fork truck, aerial platform, man lift, etc. You must be able to produce your license or record if asked. Remember, under no circumstances will lift baskets on fork trucks be utilized for lifting employees. If a PIV or mobile vehicle is equipped with a seat belt, it shall be worn by the operator as intended by the vehicle manufacturer. Material handling. All materials shall be secured to prevent unintentional motion from occurring. All materials shall be stored and transported in a manner that prevents the material from tipping, rolling, sliding, and collapsing. Personal carriers. Prior to any persons operating a golf cart or personal carrier, the contractor shall ensure those individuals are trained and such training is on file. All contractor personal carrier or golf carts shall be appropriately identified with the contractor's company logo. These personal carriers or golf carts shall be in good condition and have functional brakes, horn, flashing light, and audible signal when traveling in reverse. Materials or equipment shall not be transported on personal carriers or golf carts for any reason unless the cart is designed to carry material. Traffic control personnel. All personnel who will have control over vehicle traffic shall have documented training in traffic control measures and procedures per the Occupational Health and Safety Act regulations, and a copy of such training shall be provided to the designated FCA contact upon request. All traffic control or signal persons shall wear a reflective tearaway vest at all times while exposed to vehicle traffic on the site. Anyone performing any type of work outside on FCA property shall wear a reflective tearaway vest at all times. Written traffic control plan. Where it is required to control vehicle traffic, the contractor shall provide to the designated FCA contact a written traffic control plan. The plan shall meet the requirements of the Occupational Health and Safety Act regulations and describe the means and measures to be taken for vehicles moving on the project. The written traffic control plan shall be reviewed with all workers as required. Cranes over 50 tons. Any contractor who requires the use of any type of crane exceeding 50 tons shall notify the FCA site safety representative. The contractor shall develop a hoisting procedure for the lifts. A signal person shall be assigned to assist and direct the crane's movements during positioning and lifting. The signal person is responsible to ensure that no part of the load is being hoisted passes over any person. The crane operator carries the responsibility to ensure the path in which the material is being hoisted is properly cordoned off and the proper signs have been posted proportionately. The crane operator is responsible to ensure that all loads being hoisted are properly rigged. The crane operator has the final decision on whether the material or load is safe to hoist. A tagline shall be attached to all loads being hoisted. Crane booms shall be lowered when unattended. You must be trained and licensed to operate a crane. Remember, if you don't know how to rig it, don't lift it. Only qualified individuals are authorized to hoist and rig. Chain falls and hoisting equipment. All hoisting/lifting devices shall have a legible load capacity label present before using any type of rope, sling, or chain fall. An inspection of the lifting or hoisting device shall be performed prior to use. When chain falls are used, the chain shall be tied back to avoid entanglement with moving equipment within the vicinity. Suspended loads shall not be left unattended, including conveyors, screen guarding, etc. When overhead work is in progress, the floor area shall be roped off and posted with a sign to read, "Danger, work overhead." Every hoisting hook shall be equipped with a functioning safety latch. Fall protection. Any work that would allow a worker to fall a distance of 10 feet, 3 meters or more, is required to conform to fall protection requirements, which include training, proper equipment, and proper tie-off points. Remember, falls kill. Tie off. Elevated platforms. All elevating platforms shall be used on surfaces according to the manufacturer's design. Be aware of the maximum rated working load, special conditions or limitations of the machine, the significance of the alarms, and the location of the emergency controls. A full body harness shall be worn at all times when working in the elevated platform. The lanyard shall be attached to the manufacturer's lanyard attachment point, not around the guardrail. Scaffolds. All scaffolds shall be of an approved type and shall be erected in accordance with the manufacturer requirements. If equipped with wheels, the wheels shall be locked when in use. Planks shall meet the requirements of the Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations for construction projects in Ontario and shall be securely fastened. Guardrails shall be used around all scaffolds regardless of height. All scaffold components that are required shall be used. Quick fix repairs will not be tolerated. No loose equipment shall be left overhead of plant employees. Toe boards are to be included where there is an opportunity for objects to fall or be kicked off scaffolding. Lockout. Only authorized persons can lock out equipment, and each authorized person, before entering a cell or removing a guard, must attach their own lock and verify the hazardous energy has been controlled. Lockout. Whenever machinery or equipment is to be either de-energized or energized, the FCA project engineer or representative shall be notified by the contractor before the process is initiated. It shall be the responsibility of each contractor to maintain an adequate supply of locks for all workers performing work on the system. Each contractor employee affected shall affix his or her own lock with identification danger tag to the switch handle bearing the contractor's name, the worker's name, the name of the site supervisor, and a contact phone number. The tag and lock shall remain in place until the work has been completed. Confined spaces. All existing confined spaces are listed on a plant list and are labeled as such. You may not enter a confined space unless properly trained and you follow all confined space entry procedures. Prior to entering a confined space, the contractor must have a written procedure which meets or exceeds the FCA program and must provide a certification letter attesting same. Contractor personnel must be trained in the role each person will perform during the job. Written verification required. A written entry permit procedure must be utilized prior to and during work in the confined space. A copy of the completed permit shall be retained for at least 1 year. The contractor must assess the confined space prior to beginning work to allow the development of a rescue plan and to practice their rescue operations. All potentially hazardous materials and/or conditions are communicated to the contractor prior to the start of work. Chemicals. All chemical products being used must be pre-approved by EH&S FCA prior to use. All chemicals must have appropriate SDS sheets available for review if requested by FCA. Designated substances. Any contractor required to handle or dispose of any designated substance, such as asbestos, paint containing lead, or mercury, shall notify the designated FCA contact prior to starting the work for review. A written procedure shall be developed with only trained personnel completing the work. The procedure shall be reviewed with a plant environmental specialist for disposal and approval. Heat stress. Watch for signs of heat stress. The main symptoms are excessive sweating, muscle cramps, irritability, mild dizziness or weakness. Report symptoms immediately. In hot weather, it is possible for an individual to produce as much as 8 liters of perspiration per day. Drinking sufficient water to replace this fluid loss is essential. All locations have a plant standard for waste segregation. Please ensure that all wastes are placed in the proper bin. Please refer to each individual waste station for accepted wastes. While working on site, you are responsible for the care, control, and manage of your products, including off-site disposal in accordance with all applicable legal requirements. Do not dump any liquids or waste. All waste must be in appropriate containers and must be labeled before filling starts. Call plant Total Waste Management or environmental specialist to ensure proper containers and labels are available before project initiation. Any waste generated cannot be shipped off-site without proper FCA documentation. All disposal records shall be maintained in accordance with all applicable legal requirements. Keep liquid and waste containers closed or covered at all times when not in use. Refrigerant containing equipment is to be carried out by an FCA-approved contractor. Expect the unexpected. Stay aware of your surroundings. Follow all safety rules all of the time. Use the proper protective equipment, tools, and processes. Don't take shortcuts. Violations of FCA policies and procedures can result in disciplinary actions up to and including removal from site. There is no such thing as being too safe. Think safety. Thank you for attending the Contractor Safety Orientation. You will now be required to take a short knowledge test on the safety requirements. A passing mark of 80% or greater is required. For further detail on any of the subjects covered today, please refer to your Health and Safety Requirements for Contractors Handbook. To request a copy of the plant contacts, please speak with your project manager.